Welcome back to In the Huddle with Hayden. We have Parker Hall and SK Patrick with us here today. We love it when you guys interact with us throughout the show, so please leave your comments and questions, and we will get to those throughout the show. So it's December. College Football Conference Championships kick off just 2 weeks from now. Since these big games are not too far away, I want to ask y'all about who your picks are to play in these games. So first, we have the Pac-12 championship game on December 18th. So Oregon kind of changed things up last weekend when they fell to Oregon State. Parker, what do you think?
I don't even really want to talk about the Oregon State game and where Oregon's at now because it's very sad. I mean, all the Ducks fan base, including myself, should be MIA right now, and I mean, you can't lose that in-state rivalry game. In terms of the championship game, I mean, kind of the favorites right now, obviously USC, Washington are top of each divisions. I mean, they're good teams and they deserve to be there. I mean, on the other hand, if one of those two teams take a loss, Oregon can jump back up in there. Same with Colorado. They're looking pretty good this year. So it really depends on, I think, who goes undefeated or wins the head-to-head matchup if someone has one loss or two teams have one loss. So I'm going to go with USC Washington, but it could go multiple different ways in the next week and a half here.
Yeah, I mean, the Huskies now control their own fate in the Pac-12 North. Nobody in the Pac-12 has overly impressed me up to this point, but I still like USC speed on offense. I think they have just enough talent to push through for a Pac-12 game berth. Colorado is still lurking in the shadows, but at the end of the day, I'm going to take the proven USC talent on offense and against the Huskies of the Pac-12 North.
Yeah, I think that the clear picks at this point in the season are Washington and USC. Unless Oregon doesn't lose another game and one of those teams does, I think that Oregon's pretty much counted themselves out after last weekend, which I'm so sorry, Parker. I know that hurt.
I think USC also has like another level to reach on their offense. Like they haven't played, I don't think, to their potential. So I mean, if they can take the next step up, I mean, I can see them winning it all, and hopefully, maybe there's a chance they get a playoff spot if that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I remember earlier this season when we were talking about one of their games, I made the comment that I don't think that they should be ranked where they are because they haven't proven themselves and they really hadn't played like in a game that would set them apart. So it's interesting to see that they're now at the top, and I'm excited to see if they can actually secure their spot in the championship game and make it there. So then we have the Big Ten Championship on December 19th, which is when the rest of the games are.
Yeah, kind of same scenario here as in the Pac-12. I mean, Ohio State's obviously the easy pick, and everyone, I assume, is going to say that today. But, I mean, Indiana can still threaten them if Ohio State takes a loss. On the other side of the conference, Northwestern's really looking good. And, I mean, but they could take a loss too, and that could shake things up. So I'm going to take Ohio State and Northwestern right now. But, I mean, next week and a half, I mean, surprising upsets have happened so many times this year, so who knows?
Yeah, I'm right behind you, Parker. O State, Northwestern. O State's offenses look great, defenses look shaky. Northwestern's defenses look great, with the offense looking a little shaky. And you got to remember, with the Big Ten rules say that you got to play at least 6 games, and with Buckeyes having a game canceled, they got to make sure that they get those 6 games in. But we all know the Big Ten of we'll figure out some rule changes just to make sure that Ohio State's in that Big Ten championship game has a shot at the college football playoffs. But for the moment, I'm going O State versus Northwestern, which is going to look like it's going to turn out to be a great game.
Yeah, I don't think the Big Ten is going to let Ohio State kind of slip through the cracks and not make it to that championship game because they're obviously, they're the solid seat in this. And then the toss-up, I think, is between Northwestern and Indiana. Indiana has shown a lot of power on offense, and they can be versatile there. But also, I think that, Northwestern has done really well besides that upset loss that they suffered. But I think that those two teams are really going to have to be perfect throughout the rest of the season in order to claim that spot because they're kind of neck and neck there to me. So then next is the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, I mean, like SK said, with the Pac-12, he's not impressed with them. I'm not impressed with the Big 12 at all this year. Oklahoma isn't great. Oklahoma State isn't great. Iowa State has looked, I mean, the best of the three. So I'm going to give one spot to Iowa State, and then I'm just going to hope that Oklahoma loses another game in the next week or two or three here, and then we can get Oklahoma State against Iowa State.
Booner sooner. Oklahoma controls their destiny after 2 losses. I'm kind of shocked that they have are back into contention for the championship game. I feel like they're going to be playing Iowa State, who's looking real solid come to the close of the season. Oklahoma versus Iowa State. Rattlers finally settled back into that offense, and Oklahoma is looking like Oklahoma again. So Oklahoma versus Iowa State for the Big 12 championship.
You're completely right that Oklahoma kind of determines their own destiny at this point, especially with these next 2 games. If they make it in, for them to make it in, Oklahoma State has to lose an extra game. I think that Iowa State has pretty much secured their spot, and it's just a battle between these 2 Oklahoma teams. That is a long-time rivalry that I think we can see how heated it is, and that they're both going for the same spot. And I'm not ready to make a pick between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. I think a lot is going to happen in these next 2 weeks there in this conference. So I'm not ready to kind of make a determination on those 2 teams yet. And then how about the ACC championship? I feel like this is kind of a trick question.
Yeah, I mean, obviously surprising the independent team, Notre Dame comes in and secures their spot early. And then on the other side, you're kind of looking at Clemson and Miami. We've talked about them, both teams, all year long and how great they are. And they're probably both deserving of a spot, but unfortunately only one can make it. And I'm going to give it to Clemson. They got Trevor Lawrence back. I think they're going to be on a roll here.
Clemson versus Notre Dame. Trevor Lawrence-led team puts Clemson on another level. The winner stamps their ticket to the college football playoffs. I feel like the Tigers might just have a little bit too much firepower and will return to familiar territory. It was a great game last time, but it was very injury and COVID riddled. So everybody come back healthy. I'd love to see both of them at 100%. See who the kings are of the ACC, knowing that Notre Dame is actually independent. But Miami could sneak in there if Clemson stumbles, but don't really see that happening. Clemson versus Notre Dame, and what should shape up to be one of the best games of the college football season.
You know, I think it's funny that at the beginning of the season or even preseason, I think we would have guessed that Clemson would have secured their spot by now and that Notre Dame would be the one fighting for it. And I think that them losing Trevor Lawrence really put a huge kink in their season. And I think that we'd be looking at a completely different kind of setup if Clemson hadn't lost to them. So, but I think that Clemson, of course, is going to make it in. As much as I wanted to see Miami have a fighting chance, I don't think that they do. I think it's pretty much set with Notre Dame and Clemson. And I'm going to go so far as to say Clemson going to the playoffs. So,
yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I thought even Miami would be better this year. They were kind of super hyped team. I mean, everyone was predicting they'd take that top spot in the ACC and even over Clemson, or taking the second spot in the playoff, whatever it may be. But they kind of didn't live up to their hype. Obviously, De'Ara King wasn't the Heisman winner that they thought he was going to be this year with their opt-outs in Rousseau, and Roche didn't put up the numbers he had at Temple. I mean, they kind of fell flat a bit this year. So unfortunate to see, but I mean, who knows? Seen weirder things this year that maybe they get their shot.
Parker, but that's so interesting that you say it, because Miami is ranked in the top 10. And for you to say that they are played underwhelmingly just shows the expectations and the talent that's finally coming back to Miami now that they haven't higher expectations, when even being a top 10 team doesn't seem to be, good enough.
For sure. And I mean, that's kind of the thing, though, is Miami, everyone kind of compares them to the teams of past, right? And all those dynasties and great national championship winning teams that they have. But I think this year, like, to me, it seemed like everyone was predicting them being a top 4 team, not a top 10 team. Obviously, top 10 team, great. But what I was trying to say there is they fell flat in terms of the preseason expectation.
Yeah. And especially they played flat against Clemson. Even if they gave Clemson a run for their money, things could be more interesting and we could really kind of look at them in a different light. But the game against Clemson, it was what it was, and now Miami is what it is.
For sure. And go on.
I think that there would have been a different result there if Miami had caught Clemson, after they lost Trevor Lawrence or in the weeks after that. But Miami just caught them when they were super, super strong. And so ultimately Clemson is still the king of the ACC. And then in the past 5 years, it's completely dropped off from that. And so I'm just happy to see that there's going to be a little bit more contention and competition in the ACC finally. And then maybe, we won't have this problem of people being able to say, oh, well, Clemson doesn't play anyone. They're not actually that good. Or, Miami doesn't play anyone. They're not actually that good. Or this year, Notre Dame's not playing anyone. They're not actually that good. So I think it helps the entire conference and actually boosts Clemson and whoever else is at the top when the rest of the teams are actual competitors.
Because the ACC slowly getting back. UNC's playing is ranked in the top 25. You have Miami. You have Clemson. I know last year was really a down year. But if Louisville and Florida State and Tech can bounce back, and NC State's here and there, ACC will be just fine for the next few years.
And I'll give the shout out to Syracuse too. I mean, obviously, if they're back and popping too, I mean, it's more fun when these teams it seems like some of these traditional programs, powerhouses, are kind of at the top of their game. So, I mean, but we all can agree, obviously, Miami looks like they're headed back in the right direction. And so hopefully that's where they'll continue to go.
Okay, let's talk about the conference that I think is actually kind of fallen off in talent this year, the SEC championship.
For sure, yeah. I mean, Alabama, obviously, one pick, easy choice, and it's looking. I mean, there's a handful on the other side. I mean, Georgia, I hope, is kind of the other team. Florida's making their case. They're obviously more fun back when they're in a powerhouse spot too, right? Like the days when they had Tebow and stuff like that. So that's fun. I mean, Hayden wouldn't agree, but that's a different story. Texas A&M obviously has made their case this year. I don't think they'll surpass Alabama unless Alabama takes a loss. So I'm going to go with Florida and Alabama, but my heart wishes Georgia was taking the Florida spot.
I appreciate that. I do.
Yeah, the Crimson Tide are unstoppable, being ranked number 1 overall in the college football playoff rankings again, per usual, it seems like. But Florida has really gotten hot after that early season loss. They're ranked number 6 in the country right now. I mean, and just looking at these offenses on both sides, Cal Trask, Heisman Trophy candidate in my eyes for the Gators. Mac Jones, another Heisman Trophy candidate. And this is going to be a prize fight. You got 2 great teams, 2 great offenses, two defenses looking to prove themselves. As Hayden mentioned earlier, the SEC talent may have slipped off just a bit this year, but these defenses are looking to prove themselves. I do like Georgia, but for this SEC championship game, I'm going with the Gators versus the Crimson Rolling Tide.
Yeah, I mean, so when Georgia's game against Vanderbilt got canceled or postponed today, they were talking about, so it's been set for December 19th. And in the article that I was reading, it said this game will be played December 19th unless Georgia goes to the SEC championship. And in my mind, I was like, are we still talking like that's a possibility? Because for that to happen, Florida will have to lose its next 2 games. So the game today and then their makeup game. And I just don't see that happening at all whatsoever. I mean, with Kyle Trask at the helm of the offense and just his powerful receiving core and the running backs and, their defense has even stepped up, which was their weak point at the beginning of the season. I don't see that happening, unfortunately, for Dog Nation. I think that, after talk of a few years of Georgia not making it to the SEC championship and Florida taking their spot, I think it's finally happened. And I hope that for the fan base's sake and for Kirby Smart's sake, that he has taken this as kind of like, and he has realized that, you know, he needs a quarterback. He needs to step things up. He needs to re-solidify the defense. And so I think that this has kind of been a wake-up call for them, hopefully. But I don't think that – I think that there's maybe like a 2% chance that Georgia makes it over Florida.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I mean, I will never say in college
Until
football
it's not a chance, we have a chance. Until it's not a chance, we have a chance.
There's not a possibility, especially this season. I think we can agree that
No, yeah,
anything
for
can
sure.
happen any Saturday, especially in the SEC. But I don't see it happening. So let's talk about the Mountain West, Parker.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as the East West Football Network's resident Mountain West expert, I still think the conference is kind of up for grabs here. I mean, they're very still like only, I guess, technically midway point of their season. Right now, it's coming down to Boise State and undefeated San Jose State, which is kind of my shocker this year. But I mean, things can change quickly. Nevada will put teams on notice. They've been playing good. Wyoming's been playing good. So I'm going to take the safe pick and take Boise State, and hopefully San Jose State is the other team that can continue their undefeated run. But I like Nevada's chances to kind of upset San Jose State, and I don't think Wyoming will surpass Boise State.
Yeah, I'm taking a safe bet on that end. Boise State's been the king of the Mountain West for the past few years. I'm really interested in Wyoming. I really want to see that UNLV game too. Just all this COVID cancellations just throws everything out of whack. But I'm going to go with the proven commodity in Boise State, and I'm going to go with the undefeated San Jose State. Love how they've been playing this year. They're undefeated for a reason, just solid on all three phases of the game. So I feel like it's going to be a very interesting Boise State versus San Jose State matchup.
Yeah, I think it's easier to almost talk about the teams that we can count out. So we can count out New Mexico, UNLV, Utah State, and Air Force. And then I think that you're right when you talk about Boise State and San Jose. But I think if there's a mix up there, it's going to be Wyoming for sure. And then it could be either Nevada or Fresno State because they are tied right now. But I think that they play. So they play today. And I think that would really determine that spot and who gets kicked out, if San Jose were to fall. So I just don't think that's going to happen. And I like Boise State. Georgia played them when I was little in the Georgia Dome. And I remember that game. And I've always thought that it's cool that they have a blue field. I know that has nothing to do with football, but I just think they're a cool program. So I hope that they make it there, and I think that they will. But I do think that there's still the possibility for a mix up there.
Speaking of that blue field, though, do you feel like that's of course it's home field advantage, but just as like the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field, does that intimidate teams when they come in? Parker, you being that you cover more of the Mountain West, how do you feel about when teams come in to see that blue field? How does that make them feel? Because I mean, for me, I feel like I would be amped up to play on something so different.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know psychologically how much it does. I think it's when they run onto the field, they run out with a sledgehammer and out of smoke. I think that's a bit scarier than the blue turf, but definitely cool to run out on the blue turf. I've always loved it since I was a kid. Way better than Eastern Washington, who's got the red turf. I can't stand watching that because it gives me almost snow blindness or the same effect.
Yeah, it gives me a headache.
Yeah, totally right. But I like the blue turf. It's kind of interesting when they wear their blue on blue jersey or uniforms too, and they kind of blend in there. I like that effect. I don't know. I can't tell you about psychological. I don't think I would focus too much on it. Just another grass you're on. It's Kentucky bluegrass, if you want to call it that. But I wouldn't be too worried about it.
Anything that you can do to make a visiting team feel out of their element is going to shake them up. That is why visitor locker rooms are notoriously absolutely horrible with leaking ceilings and bugs and just absolutely horrible because you don't want a team to feel comfortable. And when you're playing on a field that is the same color as the guys that you're trying to go after, I've never done that. and I probably never will be on that field. But I can say that I think that would mess with your eyes. I think that would mess with your physical reactions and at least delay those reactions a little bit. So I think that they probably have one of the best home field advantages because teams that go there, this season, conference play, those teams are used to it at least. But when they play out of conference games, that has to shake them up a huge amount.
Well, for sure. Just going on top of that, like say there's the quarterback misses a safety over top it because he kind of blends in with his uniform in the grass, right? I mean, it could happen. So
it's week 14 of college football. We have made it this far. We are almost to the end. And we've actually had much less game cancellations today. I think it's under 10. So we're trending in a good direction, if you can say that. But the biggest game today and the only ranked matchup is going to be number 12, Indiana, at number 16, Wisconsin at 3:30 Eastern time. So this Big Ten matchup is really going to be a great game to watch, and I think it could decide who goes to the conference championship, especially when we're talking about Indiana over Northwestern. If they were to get upset today, that would change everything there and kind of secure Northwestern's spot. So Indiana does have a new starting quarterback after Michael Penix Jr. tore his ACL against Maryland. Redshirt sophomore Jack Huddle stepped in and he played the last quarter and a half of the game. During that time period on the field, he completed all 5 of his passes for 31 yards. He stands at 6'4", 215 pounds. He's put on over 20 pounds since high school, where he was actually ranked over Penix during that recruiting class. But he went to Utah and just didn't have a good run there, so he transferred. But he has a strong arm. He's also super capable of running the ball down the field. We saw a little bit of that when he was in Utah. We haven't gotten the chance to see that when he's at Indiana because he hasn't played besides for last weekend. So I'm interested to see if they utilize that skill of his. But the Hoosiers have Stevie Scott, the third in the backfield. He has already rushed for 8 touchdowns in 6 games this season. And at the receiver position, you can expect to see Ty Freifogel and Whop Philyor, which is another great, unique name. But Freifogel has caught 7 touchdowns and leads the conference with 652 receiving yards. And then you have tight end Peyton Hendershot, who's a guy to watch. This offense pretty much has an even split between rushing and passing yards, but they do average just 3 yards per play. So I would say that is their weakness. They're not a big play team. And then on the other side, you have Wisconsin's defense, and their weapon is going to be the rush defense. It's the 6th best in the FBS. They have only allowed an average of 67.3 yards on the ground per game. That's the 2nd best in the nation. They have not allowed a rushing touchdown in 3 games. The Badgers' secondary did suffer a setback last week when star cornerback Rashad Wildgoose chose to opt out of the rest of the season after he was injured. So we don't even know if he was still playing, if he would be healthy enough to participate. But he was injured in that Northwestern game. But last season, they did average 3.6 sacks per game. And this season, they're only averaging 1.7. So that is an area where they are not doing as well as they normally do, and an area that would, I think, really help them win games. So that's something that I think that they have been focusing on to improve. But what do you guys think that the Indiana offense is going to do? And do you think they're going to be as powerful with Huddle under center? And what does Wisconsin have to do to stop those chains from moving?
Yeah, like you alluded to, it's going to be an interesting game for sure. And I think they do lose a step with Penix being out. But I don't necessarily think they're in a completely terrible space. Like maybe someone would say the step that Clemson lost when Trevor Lawrence went down. Tuttle, yeah, he's unproven really. I can't judge a quarterback on 5 for 5 passing. Like that just doesn't do much for me, especially in the 4th quarter. Like I'm not going to make my assessment on that, but definitely they need to get the passing game rolling. The Badgers defense will definitely need to shut that down first, kind of make them one-dimensional, and then pressure Tuttle, get him off balance. Hopefully his inexperience will lead to some mistakes when he's under pressure. And again, like Hayden said, the Wisconsin, they're best when they're getting pressure to the quarterback. So I think they look to do that heavy this week.
I mean, he looked solid. I know it was only 5 passes, but just kind of getting thrown in the fire and being able to complete all 5 of your passes is somewhat encouraging, even if we can't make a true assessment on or evaluation on how he's going to play overall. But it was good for him just to get thrown in the fire, complete all his passes. He does have experience from Utah. They're going to have to rely heavy on Stevie Scott, who Hayden mentioned earlier. He has to take the pressure off of Tuttle. I mean, at least especially in the beginning of the game, get that running game going, so then they can feed off of play action passes, kind of keep Wisconsin's defense honest, because you don't want to turn them into a one-dimensional offense. Then you bring that safety down, load up the box, and then that hinders the running game even more. So it's going to be on Scott's back. I feel like in the first half. He's rushed for 405 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 119 carries. So putting those carries, putting the load on his back, issue for him. But just to keep that Wisconsin defense honest, who is a very, very tough out basically every single year. Wisconsin has a stout defense. So you need to really get that running play going, get Tuttle comfortable. Like I said, off those play actions. Don't just have him drop back in Wisconsin. Tee off on them. So running game, play action, keep that defense honest, keep everything out in front of you, and just make sure, because they don't really have a big play offense. So, dink and dunk, just making sure you don't make the mistakes and make sure that you don't lose the game. Even if you don't win the game, Tuttle needs to make sure that he doesn't lose the game with turnovers and interceptions going up against what is a Wisconsin defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the result of this game rests on the offensive line's shoulders. I think that, if they can do their job, if they can give Tuttle time to make those decisions about where he wants to throw the ball, I think that they will be okay. Because obviously we know that Tuttle knows how to be accurate. We know he has a strong arm. We know that he has that quarterback mind, and he's football smart. But he needs the time to do that. And a new quarterback is going to feel the pressure more than someone who's experienced and who's used to having to make those decisions in a very fast time period. And so I think that Wisconsin's focus is definitely going to be on kind of unsettling Tuttle, because I think that's going to be much easier to do than it would have been with Penix. And I think they're going to take advantage of that. The fact that he's inexperienced. He's played in only a handful of games, and so he doesn't have that knowledge and kind of muscle memory about what to do when you're being pressured. But they also need to get the Indiana offense off the field as quickly as possible and as often as possible. They lead the conference with only 19.4 of their third down conversions being allowed. So that's going to be very important, is not giving Indiana the chance to score and kind of limiting their offense. So let's talk about Wisconsin's offense. So they have a rising star quarterback in Graham Mertz, but he did have his worst performance against Northwestern. He threw his first 3 interceptions of the season, and in the first game of the season against Illinois, he completed over 95% of his passes, which is absolutely incredible. He was then out for COVID, and he has not completed more than 56% of his passes after being out. So I don't know if that's a mentality thing or what that can be attributed to, but that is a huge difference. Another concern for the Badgers offense is the health of their receiving core. Kendrick Pryor and Danny Davis were out against Northwestern, and Davis is still questionable. Pryor did practice this week. And then you have tight end Jake Ferguson. He leads the team with 18 catches for 181 yards and 4 touchdowns. But he was sidelined multiple times against Northwestern after he suffered a few hard hits. So I'm not exactly sure, and they haven't released what his health report card is, and if he is dealing with any reoccurring injuries. Jalen Berger is the team's best tailback. We're going to see him in the backfield for most of the game. Last weekend, he had 93 yards on 15 carries and led the team in rushing yards for the second week in a row. So he is somebody that he is somebody that Mertz can count on if, those receivers are not healthy and not doing their best. And then you have the Indiana defense. They are fairly susceptible through the air, and they have allowed an average of 230 passing yards per game, which ranks 58th nationally, so they're down there. But their run defense is really strong, so that's going to be a problem when it comes to Berger. But Stevie Scott calls the defensive unit the Ball Hawks when he goes up to them in practice. They have racked up 16 interceptions through 6 games, and that is the most in the Big Ten. This is what they are known for, and they haven't had a problem stifling offenses this season, and they even put up points of their own last weekend. Linebacker DK Bonhomme tackled Tagovailoa in the end zone for a safety. So do y'all think that Wisconsin's going to be healthy enough to stand a chance against Indiana's powerful run defense?
Yeah, I mean, as bad as this year has been for COVID and injuries across all level of footballs this season, it's kind of the epitome of football's next man up mentality. So if both teams were healthy, I think this would be just as good as it's going to be this week. I think there's talent and depth across all the boards, both teams. But like Hayden said, the issue is with the receiving core, and that's kind of where their go-to is. So I think someone needs to step up, earn their spot big time, get maybe 100-yard, 150-yard game, do what they can, and just kind of take over the game by themselves, and that will help them. But on the other hand, I mean, Indiana just needs to stop their run, get Wisconsin looking one-dimensional. I'm not convinced on Berger, at least in the stance of the Wisconsin running backs that pass, like Jonathan Taylor, Monte Ball, the other James White, Melvin Gordon, right? He's not one of those guys. He doesn't have the big name status. He's not as good as they are. So I think Wisconsin's kind of missing their traditional identity right now. But yeah, that's what it comes down to. Indiana needs to stop the run, get Wisconsin looking one-dimensional. And then hopefully the injuries in the pass game will prevent them from doing any damage on offense.
Yeah, I mean, with all these calculations, I mean, we have a very small sample size when it comes to Wisconsin. Even so, they're still number one time in possession in the Big Ten. I don't believe all the injuries will make a huge impact as some players return, and the Badgers have controlled the games that they have played with the running game. With those injuries, it's going to be vital for that offensive line to play one of the best games against that powerful run defense. Parker, piggyback off what you said in regards to their running backs, they're not on par with who they usually have. Usually they have top flight NFL caliber running back talent. This year they just have a solid, so it's more of a team-based game plan that's going to be implemented today and for the rest of the year, even if it is the rest of the year for them. So I feel like if the Badgers do what they do, control the clock, own the tempo, they can pull out a W. But it's going to really be again for that offensive line because they're not going to throw the ball deep. It's going to be a very bland and basic offensive game plan. Run the ball, play action, go to that tight end, run the ball a little bit more, and maybe try to pop in some big plays here and there downfield. When the safety, if the safety from Indiana comes down into the box, so be on the lookout for that Badgers offensive line. I feel like the Badgers offensive line is going to have a better game than the Indiana offensive line if they're going to win. The rushing defense of Indiana is just too good for the Badgers, even to have an average or above average game. They have to have a great game, keep everybody clean, keep everybody off the ground, and just control that ball and that tempo.
Yeah, I mean, Wisconsin's defense needs to give the offense every possible opportunity to get on the field and score. And it's really important that they control the clock, like I said earlier, and keep the ball away from Indiana. But they also need to hang on to the ball when they have it. They turned it over 5 times against Northwestern, and Indiana already has a reputation for capitalizing on those opportunities, as I mentioned earlier. The Hoosiers have 58 points off of turnovers this year, which is a crazy number for college football. And I think that the thing that's going to hurt the Badgers here is the fact that they have only played 3 games and they haven't been able to practice enough to kind of solidify and get that chemistry going between the team. So all things considered, how do you see this playing out in the end?
Yeah, like I just said, I think it could go either way, but I'm going to take Indiana. I think their defense has a bit more fight in them than the Wisconsin offense. but who knows? We've seen weird things this year, so.
Interesting, but I'm going with Wisconsin. Feel like they can run the ball a bit more. I feel like they can maybe shake some things up, just enough on offense to keep the Indiana run defense and pass rush at bay. I'll go Wisconsin to control the ball, run the ball, and get this W in a very, very, very tight, low-scoring, close game.
I'm kind of riding the line on this one, but I'm going to go Indiana, but I think it's going to be close. I think there's just so many factors in this game that are not predictable, and you can't guess what's going to happen when you have a new quarterback and when you have half of the other offense out on the sideline. So I think that it's really going to be up to football gods' fate, and I don't think that there's anyone that can guess exactly what's going to happen here today.
That's for
So
sure.
it's time for rapid fire. So interestingly enough, SK and Sania picked the exact same games last week, and Parker and I picked the exact same games. I hate to say, Parker and I lost. Sania and SK went 11-1, which is the best record that we have had so far.
Follow me to the promised land.
Your
Just
upset
go with me.
Your upset specials worked.
Just go with me. I will not lead you to anywhere that is gonna cause you trouble.
When I was watching the games last Saturday, I just knew it was going to be bad for me. I was like, oh, there goes another one and another one. So, I mean, it is what it is. It's one of those seasons, like the game we just talked about, you never know what's going to happen any Saturday in college football. So we got a lot of games to get through. So let's get into it. So at noon Eastern time, we have Ohio State and State. And actually, right before we started the show, I was on Twitter and I saw that Bruce Feldman tweeted that Ohio State is expected to be without several starters on the O-line today at Michigan State due to COVID-19. Ohio State will be without, among others, center Josh Myers, OSU's top 3 offensive tackles, Thayer Mumford, Nicholas Petit-Frere, and Paris Johnson, linebacker Tuck Borland, and the number 2 tackler on the team, defensive end Tyler Friday, and defensive back Josh Proctor. So Ohio State is really coming into this game with some unexpected challenges, and I'm interested to see if this changes y'all's prediction at all.
That's interesting because I don't think it changes my prediction. I'm still going to go with Ohio State. But I mean, it makes me believe in Michigan State more, who just came off a win against Northwestern last week. If they can upset Ohio State and Northwestern in back-to-back weeks, might as well just throw them in the playoff and see if they can beat Alabama.
I feel like you can put me and Parker out there, and as long as you have Justin Fields driving the car, I am in the passenger seat until the wheels fall off. OHIO.
Well, you know that so the offensive line has actually been a season-long issue for the Buckeyes. They haven't protected Justin Fields and given him the time to make those plays. He is just that good that he has worked around it. So, and they've allowed him to get sacked way too many times. But
Ohio State secondary is something to watch too. They've been playing borderline terrible the past couple weeks.
Yeah, so that hit to their offensive line and their defense, which is already kind of like on the rocks after the past few weeks, especially after coming off of a week off. I don't think they're going to be ready to blow a team out. And they did just have a tough win over Indiana, where they struggled to kind of secure that. But their secondary is a point to watch here. But I don't think that Michigan has the energy or stamina to keep up with Justin Fields. I mean, like you said, put us out there with Justin Fields and he'll make it work. I mean, if we can't catch the ball, he'll just run it down the field himself. So I think the big thing is going to be making sure that he doesn't hit the ground too many times. And hopefully the guys stepping up to the O-line can understand that and will do a better job at protecting him. But I still see Ohio State winning this one just a little more narrowly than before. So then we have number 5, Texas A&M at Auburn.
Yeah, like I said at the top of the show, Texas A&M's looking really good this year, and I think they close out a strong season here. Auburn, sorry, has let us down multiple times this year, so I can't even root against that or with them anymore. So I'm picking A&M.
Yeah, Bo Nix will not trick me this week. I'm going Texas A&M. Outside of that Alabama game, I love everything about this Jimbo-led team. He finally has his culture, his offense, his defense, his coaching staff, his players. Everything's installed. And Texas A&M can make an outside run for the college football playoffs if Alabama was to stumble. So I am going with Texas A&M, and I don't even think it's going to be close, really.
Yeah, I mean, the Auburn defense has not been bad against mediocre offenses, but against Texas A&M, I think they're going to have a huge problem. The Aggies do not have the powerhouse offense like Alabama or Florida, but they are fifth in the nation on third down conversions, and the Auburn defense has the worst third down defense in the SEC. So Texas A&M defense has also been killer against the run and hasn't allowed more than 90 yards on the ground in the last 4 of the 5 games. And their running back, Isaiah Spiller, has had 100-yard games in 4 of the last 5. So I'm going Texas A&M all the way. Sorry, Auburn, not really.
Let me get your guys' thoughts on Bo Nix, though, because the more and more I think about him, I mean, like, he was hyped coming in last year, starting true freshman, first one, I think, ever for Auburn. First game of the year, he beats Oregon, and which he shouldn't have done. But he's really, like, mediocre at best. I think is it because he plays in the SEC and he's so young and kind of gives that Tebow vibe that he's that hyped? Or like, what are your guys' thoughts on him?
I mean, so when you look at his statistics, he plays completely differently at home versus away. And that is a problem that you don't want to have in any quarterback. And I think that that's a confidence issue. And that's like deeply rooted psychologically. So I don't know how much you can do on the field to fix that because there's no reason for that. I mean, even when going away to play teams that they should technically just blow out, he plays worse. And I think that that's an issue that you don't want to have with a quarterback because that also sets a precedent for the rest of your offense. Because, I mean, the quarterback's at the top and everything else trickles down from there. I do think that he has been completely overhyped. And I think that that's done a lot to actually damage his confidence because when everyone thinks that you're supposed to be this great, incredible quarterback in the SEC, and you don't perform, then that pressure is even higher. And so then you start to second guess yourself and you don't have that confidence on the field that is absolutely necessary to have in that position. So I don't know if he, needs to go to some therapy or needs to have a serious talk with Malzahn, but what it is, but that needs to be fixed if he is going to kind of hold that starting spot, I think, and become who he was supposed to be.
Yeah, basically picking back off. It's just the inconsistency. You see flashes of greatness, and then you just see maybe he just puts too much pressure on himself, especially on the road. At home, you get those good vibes. Everybody's cheering for you, familiar territory, family, friends rooting on for you in the stands. So maybe just that pressure when it's on the road just kind of gets to him, and he just gets into a shell and starts throwing interceptions, and he doesn't clearly progress the field. He'll, instead of going from 1, 2, 3, it seems like he goes 1, 3, and you might have a wide open man downfield or in the flat route. Just take pressure off of yourself. Don't try to be the reason. You don't have to be the reason you win every single game, but you can't be the reason why you lose at the quarterback position. So I just feel like he's just that inconsistent play, because I see flashes, especially at home, and then last year I see flashes when it's like, I believe in Bo, and then you get to this year, and maybe COVID and just a shortened off season could contribute to it. They couldn't have the reps that they usually would. And then he comes to the season, he's just all out of whack. So I'm going to more so look for next year. But I mean, you're really running out of time, Bo. Sorry, your sophomore year. So, you get one more year, and then after that, well, we might have to go ahead and look for somebody else if you, play in the first few games how you played this year. But I still just feel like it's a confidence thing. He just has to build himself back up come next year with kind of getting back to the regular flow of things. I believe in Bo. I think he has the talent. And from what I saw last year to this year, I'm going to more so just say COVID threw everything off, get him back into his structure and familiar territory, and he'll be just fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we talked about earlier this season when Auburn was really hadn't turned their season around about Gus Malzahn losing his job. And I think that he has saved his job, but I'm not sure that Bo Nix has saved his job.
Yeah, for sure.
So then we have number 15, Oklahoma State at TCU.
Yeah, I've been rooting for the Cowboys all year. I'm going to stick with them here again today. TCU has kind of fallen off a cliff from where they were at kind of co-national champions a few years ago. So I'm going to go with the Cowboys.
Yeah, TSU is having a down year, but they still always play tough. They just have a strong running game. So I feel like that running game is going to cause this game to be close, but the Cowboys just have too much offense. And for a Big 12 defense, they have a solid to good defense as well. I'm going with Oklahoma State in this one.
Yeah, the Cowboys are strong defensively, and they also have a really explosive offense. So I don't think that there's much chance that TCU takes this one. I'm going Oklahoma State, which puts them in a better position for that championship game.
Oh, yeah.
So then we have Western Carolina at number 17, North Carolina.
North Carolina. I don't think anything much needs to be more said than that.
Yeah, Sam Howell's going to have a huge day for Mac Brown and UNC. I feel like it will be a relatively easy day. UNC big.
Yeah, I mean, UNC, I think they're going to get up fast and absolutely blow out Western Carolina. It's their senior day, and I think you're going to be able to see all of that passion that those guys want to leave on this field. So then you have Rice at number 21, Marshall.
Yeah, I'm going with Marshall to win big over Rice this week. I mean, Marshall's played great all year, so they should continue their streak here.
Marshall's defense has been absolutely unreal this year, giving up only 10 points per game. Rice, you're going to have to hold this L this week.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to easily be able to control the Owls' offense and keep them from doing anything too exciting. And I think that Marshall has the nation's second best defense and best scoring defense. And I think that's going to be really obvious today on the field. I don't think that there's any chance that Rice gets this dub. So at 2:30, we have Syracuse at number 2, Notre Dame.
Yeah, Notre Dame's not going to have an issue with Syracuse at all this year. Syracuse has barely showed any life this year, so Notre Dame will win easy.
Yeah, Ian Book, Notre Dame, they pick up momentum as they march towards the ACC championship with a date with Clemson.
Yeah, this is a glorified, highly publicized practice for Notre Dame at this point. I mean, they know they're going to the playoffs, Syracuse, or not the playoffs. They know that they're going to the conference championship, and so does Syracuse. So, I mean, if you look at Syracuse's offense, they put up 3 yards on the ground against NC State. And now they're playing Notre Dame. So I think that that's going to be an even bigger issue there for them. And the defensive front hasn't given up that much this year. And they're a brick wall at this point in the season. And I think that Notre Dame is going to take this one very easily.
Syracuse is always interesting, though, because they seem somehow to keep it very close, even when they're a bad team against Clemson. And kind of even you saw last year, it was like, oh, they might actually pull away with a win. Or maybe, no, 2 years ago. And they did upset Clemson, I think, 3 years ago. So, I mean, who knows what can happen, but I don't think that's going to happen here this week.
Well, it's interesting that Syracuse can keep it close, but still lose. And Notre Dame can keep it close, but still barely win, which is what we've seen quite a bit this season. I mean, when they played Louisville, that was absolutely insane. So I think that that's where a lot of my doubt lies in Notre Dame is their inability to kind of like pull away and take the lead. But I don't think that at this point in the season, Syracuse is going to be able to upset here. So we have number 6, Florida at Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm going to take Florida for obvious reasons here. Like I said last time I was on the show, Tennessee's really fallen off a cliff, and Florida is looking like they should have a playoff spot.
Yeah, Tennessee was my dark horse coming into the year, and clearly they stayed in the dark. So I'm going with Florida, marches on to try to get that playoff spot from the SEC.
Oh, that was a good one. That was a good one. I'll give that one to you. But Kyle Trask, he's made 36 touchdown passes this season and has a completion rate of 71%. I think that that's only going to get better in this game. Tennessee's really not going to know what hit them at this point. So then West Virginia at number 9, Iowa State.
Yeah, another game that should be an easy win. Iowa State, sorry, not Ohio State. Iowa State will come away victorious. West Virginia's, I mean, they looked okay at times this year, but I don't think they'll put up much of a fight here.
Yeah, it seems like I've said this every week that Lady Brown is the most underrated running back in the nation. I feel like he's going to have a big day, but Ohio State still wins. I mean, yeah, Iowa. You got me saying Ohio.
Yeah, my bad.
Iowa State is just too solid all around, and they'll pick up the W as well.
Yeah, I mean, y'all did it to me too.
Ohio State is on the brain.
Iowa State has not put up less than 300 yards in a game this season. And so I think that they have their eye on that ticket to the Big 12 championship. And I just don't think that West Virginia is going to have a chance here. But I don't think that they're going to make it completely easy for them either. I think it's going to be a good matchup here. So then we have number 19, Iowa at Illinois.
So this one's funny. I'll tell you, I read an article earlier this week about the Illini Canadian running back Chase Brown, and he's had a pretty good season as far as his standards go. And they're kind of saying, oh, is he better than Chuba Hubbard now? And kind of the Canadian running back comparison, which I don't think is true, but people are loving him up here. So I want to give the Illini the benefit of the doubt here this week, but I think Iowa's going to give them too much to handle. So I'm going to pick the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, Illinois just can't get right this year. Injuries, COVID, just has dismantled this team. Iowa wins this big.
Yeah, they don't have an offense. They've struggled on third down, and they've failed to win the time of possession battle. So I think that Iowa is going to take this one pretty plain and simple. So then we have Tulsa at Navy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the question is every week Navy or Army or any of the military academies play is how are you going to stop that triple option? I think Tulsa is a good all-around football team, so I think they'll have no issue stopping that triple option from Navy this week.
You think they won't have any issues, but I do. Upset special. I feel like Navy's triple option is just going to be a little bit too unique. Tulsa defense isn't really that solid. Got in the running game. And of course, we know Navy's not really going to throw the ball, so they're just going to pound the ball. And that triple option is simple yet effective. Tulsa's defense isn't that good, especially when it comes to running the run defense. I'm going with my upset special is Navy over Tulsa.
See, I don't think that the triple option has that much of an effect when you're playing a team that is used to playing against that triple option. These teams play almost every season. And then, I mean, when it comes to their defense, I think that their run defense is actually their strong suit. And I think
I don't know if that's saying much, though.
I mean, it's not. But I think for Navy to have a chance, they would have to have long drives, run the ball exceptionally well, and control the clock. And I don't think that they can do that here. I don't think that Navy has, honestly, the talent or the stamina to kind of put up that kind of fight.
Upset special. I have to disagree with y'all. But we'll see. We'll see.
We will see. So at 4 o'clock, we got Stanford at number 22, Washington.
Yeah, again, like I said at the top of the show, Washington's kind of the team to beat in the Pac-12 right now. A win here today will help further their case and separate them as top dogs in the Pac-12. So I'm taking the Huskies.
Yeah, I'm taking Huskies too. But a David Shaw-led Stanford team, I'll always give credit. I will always give them a chance. So it's going to be a close game. I feel like Stanford's going to keep it close going into the fourth quarter, and Washington will eventually pull it away.
I mean, this season, Stanford's defense cannot get off the field. And when they finally do, they don't have a running game. And like we mentioned, and everyone has mentioned in this show, Washington is playing for that spot. They've been outstanding on third downs on both sides of the ball. The O-line isn't letting anything happen in the backfield, and I think that they want it now more than ever. And so I just don't see Stanford having a chance here. So at 5:30, we have a new game, number 13 BYU at number 18 Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably going to be the hardest game for me to pick this week. I mean, both teams undefeated, looking really good. You guys know how extremely high I am on BYU this year, but Coastal Carolina is also the real deal. And I would argue their defense is a lot better than BYU's, and offenses are similar. Quarterback play is both top tier from both teams, so it's going to be a game that can go either way. I'm going to stick with my boys in Utah and go with BYU.
Yeah, I'm with you, Parker. BYU, I feel like should be ranked higher than 13. I feel like they're balanced on offense and they can beat you with the run-up pass, and they're averaging close to 48 points per game. Coastal Carolina defense is solid, but I feel like the Cougars are just a different beast. This is going to be the best game of the day, though, but I'm going BYU.
Yeah, both of these teams are undefeated, but I'm going to stick with you guys and go BYU. The running game is explosive. Zach Wilson is setting himself up to be a first-round draft pick, and their defense has also been rock solid. They have really limited their opponent's yards, so I'm going with BYU. So at 7 o'clock, we have number 23 Oregon at Cal.
Yeah, what a fallen 22 spots, or 12 spots actually, sorry, this week. Wow, from Oregon. I don't even want to really root for them just in case I'm the jinx now, but I can't give up on them just yet. So I'm going to take the Ducks.
Yeah, Oregon will bounce back in hopes of still sliding into that Pac-12 championship. I feel like the team is just too talented. The Big 12 is not the Big 12 that we are accustomed to. They're having a down year, so I'm going Ducks.
Yeah, I mean, Cal has not won a game this season, and I don't think that they're going to win one today. Oregon's looking for revenge. They're looking to come back after getting upset by Oregon State. They're fighting for that spot in the Pac-12 championship. Tyler Shue has done an incredible job at leading his offense this season, with the exception of last weekend, which I think you can actually blame that more on the defense. But Cal cannot get anything to work for them. They can't throw the ball. They have no pass rush. Their O-line is virtually ineffective. So I think that Oregon's going to come back here and take the win. So at 7:30, we have number 3 Clemson at Virginia Tech.
Yeah, Virginia's shown flashes this year of being a quality team, or Virginia Tech, sorry, but Clemson has Trevor Lawrence back. They're going to win easy.
Yeah, I feel like Tech makes this a game in the first half, but Clemson comes alive in the second half and plays Tigers football and pulls away.
You know, I was wrong last week when I said that Clemson wasn't going to come onto the field and put up huge numbers. They did, and I think they're going to again this week. I think they're going to generate over 300 passing yards and solidify that second spot to the ACC championship. So at 8 o'clock, we have number 1 Alabama at LSU, which we all know used to be one of those top games. And I even read that CBS still has it as one of their top games, but I just don't think that it's that much of a guess of what's going to happen here today.
Yeah, I mean, last year at this time, I was excited to watch these two play each other, but Bama's going to win easy.
3 words: roll, damn, tide. That's all that needs to be said.
I mean, yeah, I think that Alabama's going to win, but something about those 2 words together just kind of stings. It just kind of stings, guys. Take it personally sometimes. But I think that, I mean, there's just no way with LSU's demise and where they are in the season that they're going to be able to kind of pull this off. So then we have number 10, Miami at Duke.
Yeah, I mean, Miami's still got to fight for their case, like we said, right? Make the conference championship, hopefully get a playoff spot. I think they'll beat Duke here, but they really have to destroy them to make a case for themselves.
Yeah, I feel like Miami has bounced back nicely since their lone loss to Clemson. King leads them to one more victory as they try to make a push. Excuse me, sorry, as they try to make a push into the ACC championship game.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Miami wins this one all the way, but I think they're at a point, and Clemson's at a point where there's no way that they're going to make it into that championship game unless Clemson loses, which I do not see happening. So I think Miami wins this game and, maintains their spot in the top 10, maybe even moves up another spot depending on who loses today. But I don't think I think they're out for the count when it comes to the conference championship. So lastly, we have Baylor at number 11, Oklahoma.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of a closet Baylor fan. I hope they're the team. Like I said, I want Oklahoma to win or lose one more game so Oklahoma State and Iowa State can play each other in the conference championship game. So, but I don't think Baylor gets it done here this week. I'm going to take Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'm going Oklahoma. Spencer Rattler has really settled into that offense, like we spoke to earlier. After those two losses, I'm going Sooner Booner, and they're going to be in that conference championship game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going Oklahoma. Y'all said it pretty plain and simple. And I do think that keeps the contention going for that spot in the conference championship, which we like because we don't like things that are predictable. We like to have a little guessing game there, but I just don't think Baylor can pull it out. So we thank everyone for watching. In the Huddle with Hayden is brought to you by Grand Leyenda Tequila and Grand Lighthouse Coffee. Make sure you go to grandlighthousecoffee.com and use the promo code EastWest to get 10% off of your purchase. See you guys next weekend.